Welcome to Money Market, a Bank of Tampa podcast. We highlight the businesses, expert business advice, local economy, and points of interest in the Tampa Bay market. Follow us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever you find all of your favorite podcasts. Please like, follow, share this episode with a friend or colleague if that is something that is of interest to you. I am your host, Owen Lefebvre, the Pinellas County Market President for the Bank of Tampa, Tampa Bay's oldest and largest community bank. Joining us today and bringing us the perspective of the small business owners, Paul Huszar, the CEO, President, and majority owner of VetCor, a water and mold restoration company with locations in 6 different states now?
Yes, sir. That's
amazing. I look forward to hearing about some of that growth story. But VetCor is also focused on creating opportunities for veterans, and that we will definitely get into that as well. So Paul retired from 23 years of active military duty, including 4 combat tours in Iraq, 1 accompanied tour in Korea, and operational deployments in Thailand, Bolivia, Honduras, Panama, and Haiti. You did some travel in your time. His military awards and decorations include the Legion of Merit, the Bronze Star Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster, and I learned recently from another guest that means you were awarded it twice,
yes,
right?
Sir.
Congratulations. Defense, how do you pronounce
Meritorious
that?
Service.
Meritorious Service. And with 3 Oak Leaf Clusters. Man, decorated. Several other accommodations, service medals, and unit awards. Paul, thanks for joining us on Money Market.
Thanks for having me, buddy. I appreciate it.
Kick us off by telling us a little bit about VetCor.
So VetCor is a restoration company. We help solve water mitigation, mold remediation, fire damage challenges, and other related services. But the thing that makes us unique is we primarily do it by deploying former members of the U.S. military. Our policy is veterans and those who share similar values. And then Team VetCor is the company I started about 4 years ago. It's a holding company that facilitates, it includes a bunch of LLCs underneath it that facilitate the franchising of VetCor, and that concept that really his mission is to create business ownership opportunities for veterans and those who share similar values.
That's awesome. We're going to get into the structure, but I want to start with why did you start VetCor? Like, what's the inception story? Where did that come from?
Yeah, it's interesting. I retired and moved to Tampa, picked quality of life, and I said, I'll find something here. And then I went for about 6 months of not finding something, and started getting discouraged. And I realized, man, that the challenges that I was facing as a retired senior officer are similar to the challenges that junior enlisted were facing at the time. Veteran unemployment was very high. When I left active duty, I was the dean of the Army's Engineer School, and I recognized there was a problem with really it's credentialing of soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines. They don't get many of them don't get the kind of corresponding civilian credential when they get out, even though they have had great training by Uncle Sam. And in this case, engineers are skilled trades, and that's a states' rights issue. And so when you train somebody in one centralized location, then send them to 50 states, we train the National Guard, you can't get 50 states to agree on one common standard of anything. Yeah. And it's a licensing thing. So this opportunity kind of really, it's a crazy accidental entrepreneur story that fell into my lap, but I had an opportunity to create, really meaningful, sustainable business, civilian business opportunities for veterans. And that was my passion.
I mean, did you have any background in restoration? Like, how did that happen?
It's marginally related to construction and engineering. I was an Army Corps of Engineers officer, although I spent most of my time on the troop side. Conscious decision. I just enjoyed it. I was a paratrooper for 11 years. I just like doing that stuff better.
How's your back?
I have eight bulging discs in my back, but I had a procedure done a couple years ago, and as you know now, I'm in the best shape of my life.
Yeah, you are.
My fitness and health decisions. But
if we had a broader podcast, we could do a whole podcast on all your.
That's what I really have fun talking about. But it was just an opportunity because construction engineering, it's the remediation side and the mitigation side is kind of the beginnings of the construction and engineering that's required. And there's a lot of environmental engineering considerations and with mold remediation and air quality and things like that. All that, I have the undergrad and graduate experience thanks to Uncle Sam. Mm-hmm. But the veteran aspect was what really lit my fire.
No, I love that aspect of it. But so how did you just decided to go buy a truck and do it by yourself? Did you have a friend that you went into business with?
Yeah. So I was just interviewing, networking. At one point in time, I was batting 0 for 40 on applications that I had just sent out to be a project manager, civil engineer, construction manager, that kind of thing, because that's what I thought I would be doing. And then through this crazy series of networking events, I get connected with a gentleman named David Howard. Okay. David had just been hired to run a forensics engineering company in Tampa, although he had been an Army officer for 5 years and then 25 in the insurance industry. This forensics engineering company primarily had insurance carrier clients because they were doing cause and origin loss investigations for sinkholes. If you remember back in, this was 2013, back in that time, that was a big deal. Mm-hmm. But some legislation had changed, so they needed to kind of pivot a bit. So they hired David, who had an insurance background, to run the engineering company. Okay. Well, he gets my resume because I was an engineer, and then next thing you know, they had started to vertically integrate other service offerings to these insurance carrier clients, and they had just launched VetCor on Veterans Day 2013. Wow. He gets my resume a week later. It was destiny.
It is destiny. So looking back at how far you've come as a business owner from that point in time with David, I mean, what would you say you've done well?
Why don't you ask the other question? It's easier. What are the things I screwed up?
That can come to you. Want to start there?
I think branding. I think people understand, and that's all based on passion and mission. You see me drive my Jeep around. It's red, white, and blue wrapped VetCor Jeep. I go everywhere with my VetCor polos on. Trying to represent the brand known for timely, quality, reliable service and the value of veterans in everything we do. We have opportunities. I've done probably something like 30 podcasts now. Okay. And we've won awards and things like that. We were the Tampa Bay Business Startup of the Year in 2017. We were the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's veteran-owned runner-up startup or business of the year in 2019. Anytime I've gotten the microphone, I've tried to represent the brand because that's what I'm passionate about. And I think that we've done exceptionally well.
You are everywhere, very visible, very involved in the community, which I commend you for as well. So what would you say the most rewarding experience you had as a business owner? Is it serving the veteran community?
Yeah, it's creating opportunities for other veterans. And really, we did Hurricane Irma in 2017, which was a big event for us, earned a bunch of revenue. I thought it was a war chest. It was a war chest for a retired Army officer, not for a CEO that wanted to franchise his company. Lesson learned. But that really gave me the opportunity, incentivized me to study franchising and create opportunities for people like me, retiring senior folks that wanted to get out, that didn't know what they wanted to do. But I knew if they were like me, and most of them are, they want to give back, they want to continue to serve, they still want to be part of something bigger than themselves and be affiliated with the cultures, norms, and values of the military, that they would in turn hire more veterans. Okay. And so now the snowball is just starting to build and roll and get bigger and bigger as we go. And that's
so the move into franchising was just for scale, to help more veterans, give more veterans opportunities.
It was a ton of primarily for scale, but also, I'm a retired Army officer, and so to have the capital required to continue to build, to create more opportunities for vets, franchising is a much different model, right? Mm-hmm. You're getting other people to become business owners and actually build wealth and quality of life in their lives as well. So that model just seemed to fit what I really wanted to do.
Now, in terms of quality control, because you're relinquishing control, someone else is running. How have you fared with that? How do you go about ensuring that the brand and the service is consistent?
So what I tell people is, as I studied franchising, I became a certified franchise executive almost before we started franchising. I just dove into it. Franchising is all about training, standardizing, and replicating, in my opinion. Any institutions that have a good reputation for training, standardizing, and replicating better than the U.S. military?
Pretty darn good. Yeah. McDonald's is a close second. Yeah. The military, I think, has it beat.
But in hindsight, what I've recognized is initially we did a really good job of training, standardizing, and replicating restoration business. What we didn't do as good a job of initially was training and standardizing and replicating small business owners so that they understood how to read a P&L, a balance sheet, marketing, insurance, all those kinds of things. and particularly for transitioning veterans that don't have a lot of experience in those areas. We've made some changes over this past year that have significantly improved that.
What does that look like? Yeah, what does that look like?
Yeah, so it's awesome. I hired the new COO. His name's Kevin Elwood. Kevin's a retired first sergeant, which is an enlisted 8. It's almost as high as you can get as an enlisted person. 9 years ago when he retired, a year before he retired, he bought a college hunks hauling junks franchise. Nick and Omar, plug for you. And and he turned it into $1 million a year business.
Okay.
Became a absentee owner, and then he became a franchise business coach for college hunks, training other franchisees on how to be successful. And then he continued to progress in the franchising world, and he was the president of emerging brands for a home services platform brand called Premium Service Brands, and then a couple of other senior positions with them. And then I hired him to be our COO. And so now we still have that same training, standardizing, replicating for restoration and quality control and all that stuff. But now with Kevin's experience, he's just done a phenomenal job instituting operational compliance, franchising excellence, teaching those franchise business owners how to be really good business owners, how to see themselves, their profitability, all that stuff.
So you had mentioned, and we've danced around it a little bit, but talking about veterans coming into the workforce. You're talking about franchisor and not having, or franchisees and not having that background. What is your process to get them integrated into the workforce? How do you go about that?
Yeah. So it's for franchising, for franchisees, it's different than for teammates, employees.
Sure.
For the employee, on the employee teammate side, I prefer the word teammate. Just seems to be more logical and fit with our culture. It's really not that difficult. It's same cultures, norms, and values of the military. So what we really have to do, we focus on the technical side, because most people don't have any type of training in water damage mitigation, mold remediation. We like to say it's science, but it's not rocket science. So we work on the technical certifications for them. That's really the biggest thing. The rest of the stuff is very similar to the military and the way we run our, and most people, because only about 7% of the population are veterans, take that a certain way. That's very, I use my knife hand and I give out order. That's not, it's not how the military runs. The military, in my opinion, is probably the greatest leader development organization in the world, the U.S. military. And so very purpose-driven, mission-type orders, task and purpose, and a lot of initiative. So that's one way with the teammates. It's not really that difficult. With franchisees, we've learned a ton of lessons, both in selecting the right ones and onboarding and training them. And so we have a phase 1 training right after they sign a franchise agreement. That's really how to be a small business owner. That's about a week long. And then we tuck in 2 weeks right before their grand opening, and that's how to run their restoration business. And during those, we concentrate on the things that we know that we, and particularly lessons learned in hindsight, looking back at where our previous franchisees haven't excelled as well as we'd hoped. Mm-hmm. And so we focus on those types of things, the marketing, the training, really the referral marketing, because that's our playbook. Mm-hmm. We're a preferred vendor for over 11 TPAs, third-party administrators. So when they turn their lights on, they get business right away. And that business is enough, well, I call it reps and revenue. They get repetitions to get into practice right away. They get revenue essentially with zero cost of acquisition. They didn't have to go hunt it down or anything.
Just through that referral network.
Just through that referral network.
That's amazing.
But it's not an ATM machine, and it's not enough to make them sustainably profitable. But for each one of those jobs, there's an insurance adjuster, there's an agent, there's an inside claim staff, there's future referrals. And you go, hey, how did we do? Right. And you did. You knocked it out of the park because you got your customer service survey. You compared your results and your loss ratios and the dollar amount and stuff. And then you nurture those networks for future referrals. And in the 60 to 90 days before you open, you go out and you visit every agent, adjuster, apartment manager, property manager, resort owner, hotel, college dorm campus, anybody who has responsibility over several toilets that flush. Yep. Because the standard things that we do are dishwashers, ice makers, hot water heaters, air conditioning units that break routinely. Sure. You just have to have those referral sources for enough of them that they go, and you just have cups of coffee with them. Hey, it's better to know us and not need us.
Building relationships.
Need us and not notice. Yeah. Relationships, not transactions. Because people that are selling transactions, they smell you a mile away.
Totally. Yes. So in terms of, and by the way, one of those was a spigot that broke inside my wall. So I appreciate the panicked call that, hey, my house is filled with water and I need you to bail me out.
You are our best customer ever.
Oh, thank you. You say that to
Actually,
your
your wife is our best customer ever. You were second best.
Yeah, and she was the one. So I guess for background for everyone else, I had broke my leg playing hockey, so I couldn't put any weight on it. And I'm sitting on the couch as I'm watching like the house fill up with water. She's upstairs in the office, and I'm like, "You got to get down here and turn off the water. We got to call Paul." So I appreciate that. You had mentioned kind of the training from the Army. What do you think from that training you've put into play in your leadership style and management style?
Everything. I'm so thankful for the opportunities I had from Uncle Sam. The challenge is most veterans don't understand how to apply that stuff. It absolutely applies, but they just don't understand sometimes.
Why do you think that is? I mean, where's the disconnect?
Different vernacular, different vocabulary, different culture. And that's one of the things that I really try to focus on is taking all these tools, I call them recipes for success, and figuring out how to apply them in the civilian world. And I talk about it publicly all the time. I say, hey, veterans come with these tools. It's ingrained in us. I'll give you some examples. Everything we do is worthy of an after action review. What happened? Why did it happen? How we can improve.
Okay.
If you think about a learning culture in an organization, and every time you do something, you stop and you ask yourself, what just happened? Why did it happen? And how we can improve? I mean, that's amazing for continuous learning, continuous improvement. There's a thing, I don't know if this is still current doctrine, but it was doctrine when I left. I think it was called the art of battle command. Understand, visualize, describe, direct, assess. So if you as the commander or the CEO of an organization can understand whatever problem it is you're trying to solve, you can visualize the solution of how you see your team attacking this problem. You can describe it then to your team, so you share your vision with them. And then through written orders and verbal orders and communications, you direct things to happen. You go here, do this. You go here, do this. And then you assess through measure of performance and measures of effectiveness. Did you do the right things? And did you do them right to achieve the right results? And then that becomes a big loop. And that's magic.
That is magic.
Understand, visualize, describe, direct, assess.
But you can apply it to everything in life.
Yeah. And yet the military has got this way of taking things like that and just packaging them so that you get it, and it's you can remember it into this day.
Is there an acronym that goes with that? Is there?
For that one, I don't think so. Understand, visualize, describe, direct, assess.
Okay. I mean, it's
in here. I can't get it out.
Drilled Indian, literally.
Yeah. There's others. We talk about. We've had these discussions in Leadership Tampa. Millennials, right?
Yep.
Oh, you always got to explain the why to them. Always got to explain the why to them. Well, guess what? There are 5 components to a mission statement. Everybody in the military knows this: who, what, where, when, and why. And so good leaders are always explaining the why to millennials and all their subordinates all the time anyway.
I have found in my own leadership that just be transparent, and there's no reason not to share the why. They need to buy in. Which I think, if they don't buy in, they're not going to be motivated. But I don't know why some leaders are afraid of the why.
And it's funny in the military, people think that you follow orders. There's a knife hand again, right? Mission type orders is abbreviated missions. Instead of the 5 W's, mission type orders is task and purpose. Do this. Here's why you do this. Mm-hmm. And if you must achieve the purpose, if there's another way to do it, the task, okay, as long as it's not illegal, immoral, unethical. Mm-hmm. And that's the power of the U.S. military. We've figured out how to do those things. And people also, it's another one of the benefits. As a commander, you're taught to learn and understand commander's intent 2 levels above your own.
Okay.
And so if your intent is nested with the commander's intent 2 levels above your own, everybody is nested and everybody's in sync, resources-wise, operationally, administratively, logistically, and magic starts to happen.
Everybody's on the bus,
Yep.
right? So we had started with the harder question about what you learned, what you did right. So let's go ahead and let's do the easy one. What'd you do wrong?
No, man. Over this past year, I mentioned, we didn't focus on the aspects of training, standardizing, replicating business ownership, and some of that it's all my fault. Buck stops with me. I thought people were going to do what I did and dive in, and I took advantage of other programs to learn some of that other stuff, and we had to create the guardrails for that, and we didn't do that well. We also didn't select some of the right people as franchisees. We didn't know what we didn't know. I don't want entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Right? I want people who are entrepreneurial minded, but entrepreneurs aren't the people that follow a playbook. They want to create their own playbook, and that's fine. But go start a business. I think it's harder, but I want people who are entrepreneurial minded and can take what we've done and make it better and share it with their team left and right. But look, the colors are red, white, and blue for a reason. Mm-hmm. You can't decide you're going to have a yellow polo and put the red, white, and blue VetCor logo on it. You can with your company, but not with our company in the system, right? So, ton of lessons learned in selection. We've also we've had.
How do you? I'm going to interrupt you. Like, how do you vet that out during your selection process? Because I've had this conversation recently, but I will fully admit that I have a scattered track record in hiring. And it's especially the people who interview well. Oftentimes they have a lot of practice interviewing, and so you really never know until you get in. So what is hire slow, fire fast.
That's right.
But so I mean, have you been able to hone in on a process to select the perfect franchisee?
It's iterative. So I would not be as cavalier to say we've got it down pat yet. A lot of people use assessments, DISC, and Myers-Briggs, and all those other things. I think there's some value in that.
Sure.
Particularly when you're talking about like sales positions and operations positions. Those profiles are pretty nailed now by this time. I'm not sure, at least I haven't found it, and I've asked around. I'm not sure there's a great profile for a business owner, for a franchisee, for an entrepreneur. We have studied like who has succeeded and who hasn't done well. And I've kind of demographically figured out some of those things, and we won't, for the ones that haven't done well, that's on my radar screen. I'm looking for those traits and those types of things now, which I wasn't previously, and shame on me, but I didn't know what I didn't know.
No, you're learning.
Yep.
Going through the assessment process.
Yep.
So in terms of that entrepreneurial mindset, not entrepreneur, what lessons have you learned from your franchisees and applied in the broader business?
The biggest thing, and it was kind of the negative lesson learned, and when I looked at there was two kind of demographics of people who didn't succeed. You have to work on your business, not in your business. It's kind of a duh, right?
Yeah,
but
E-myth. Right?
Yeah, and you've got to follow the playbook. We have a successful franchise system based on the playbook, the way we do it. If you don't want to follow the playbook, don't buy our franchise, man. It's just crazy to me that how that happened and why. Which is why, again, you got to have people who they don't have to necessarily rotely follow the SOPs, but they got to follow SOPs, and I like them to make them better and suggest, right? Mm-hmm. But do it from a point of, hey, we've tried this, or this is another way. And so, one, you have to see those qualities, and you have to really make sure they get that in the vetting process and the awarding process. So we had huge lessons learned. There are people that will buy businesses, buy franchises, not just in our system, Any's, and they think they got an ATM machine. come get the Bank of Tampa and buy a Bank of Tampa ATM machine and just come and withdraw money whenever you need it. It doesn't work that way. You've got to do the hard work, the marketing, the sales, the business development, the relationship establishment. Yes. That's probably the biggest lesson learned. That's what's required.
What about mentors in your life?
Oh man, there's a ton of them. Ton in the military, and the ones in the military are still active today, and a ton in the civilian world and in franchising. You probably know my foremost, I'm sure everybody in Tampa knows my foremost mentor. He's like my father to me, Rolf Farnham.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah.
Rolf's a fellow West Point grad, fellow retired colonel, salt of the earth man. I won't say his exact age, but it's over 90. He's the guy that, brought the Army-Navy game to the Rose Bowl, former chairs of several chambers of commerce. And guys got more energy and more vigor than I do now.
That's amazing.
Right now. And so I meet with once a month with him, and that's just super, super quality time. In fact, Friday is my upcoming meeting with him. Duke DeLuca, retired one-star general. He was my brigade commander. I was his operations officer in Iraq in 07-08. I was the dean of the engineer school when he was the commandant of the engineer school. Dear friend of mine. Our Myers-Briggs personality tests are almost exactly aligned. And in the Army, there's a saying that says, as an operations officer, your job is to make the commander's dreams come true. Mm-hmm. And I used to say, well, it's pretty easy when you have the same dreams because you have the same exact personality type. So those are probably my two foremost mentors. And then there's a ton more former commanders in the military. Mark and Sue Tilson was my battalion commander when I was a young company commander. I just had dinner with them. They were in town about a month ago. I could go on and on and on. Yeah, I'm so blessed.
Well, it may be just as important, but anti-mentors, and not asking you to name names.
Yeah,
but
I
feel like I've learned just as much from folks of what not to do than mentors that help me kind of guide along the way of what to do.
You know,
anybody, well, and again, no names.
No.
But any lessons that jump out, you say, I'm not going to do that.
That concept is not, I think, embraced enough. And I do, you know, several of our Leadership Tampa classmates have asked me to help them, and I've occasionally teach a class on leadership at University of Tampa. And when I talk about it, I talk about developing a leader philosophy. It's one of the things I did in the military. I was a dean, but my title was Director of Training and Leader Development. And as I talk about developing a leader philosophy, part of my leader philosophy is to kind of learn and grow. And I'd say you have a book, 2 pages, to do, not to do. Mm-hmm. Go through life and fill up both of those pages from other leaders that you learn from, because you can learn as much from bad leaders of things not to do as you can from good leaders of things to do. Absolutely. And by the way, good leaders sometimes are going to give you things not to do, and bad leaders, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, can be to do.
Sure.
But you got to capture those lessons and then figure out how to apply them in the future. And too many people will dismiss the not to do and forget about it, but not think about, hey, consciously, I'm not going to do things this way. In fact, I've studied that and I'm going to do things the other way. That's a great point. It is not, I think, highlighted enough.
And I think, well, and it's easy for me to sort out and point out, because it's like when you're giving someone a like feedback, they always say you need to have multiple good things before you get the negative thing, because it cancels out everything else. And so to me, the negatives, and maybe it's a character flaw for me, I don't know, they stand out of my mind, and just don't do that.
Yeah.
And then make it a point to do the good things. But so advice for small business owners. So someone wants to start out, or maybe they've already started and they're running a business. I mean, what's your quick tutorial?
Well, so
you mentioned our Leadership Tampa friends. I mean, what's your playbook for that?
Yeah. So first of all, one step before that, and it's kind of an assessment. There's this chart. I don't know if I've ever showed it to you, but I got it a couple years ago. I wish I had it when I started franchising, when I transitioned out of the military. And it's this Venn diagram. So I'm an engineer. I like Venn diagrams. If you can find the intersection of these 4 things: what the world needs, what you can be paid for, what you're good at, and what you love doing.
Love that. Yeah.
The intersection of those 4 things, you never work another day in your life. And so what we tell people now as franchisees, if VetCor is that all 4 of those things for you, then this might be the right opportunity. The question is it the optimum opportunity for you? But if we don't fulfill one of those 4 things in your mind, we don't want you.
Yeah, like no harm, no foul. Yeah, right? It's not a bad thing.
Because that's your sweet spot. That's the purpose, and that's probably the best nugget that I've gotten, particularly, and I use it all the time now because I'm looking for teammates, for franchisees.
Sure. Anything else you want to add, Paul?
I appreciate the opportunity. I'll get back on my soapbox about veterans. We're at a point in time in our nation's history, less than half a percent of the population actively serve in the military today. It's the lowest it's ever been. Mm-hmm. It's great news. We've beat our chest for the most powerful nation on the face of the earth, and we're doing it with the least amount of our national treasure at risk. Awesome news. Also, as you translate that, it's a very older demographic. Only 7% have ever served. Give them a chance. No handouts, but give them opportunities. If you provide them with opportunities in the right structure, in the right conditions, they're going to make your teams succeed wildly.
Well, in my experience, they are great teammates, to use your word. But I will say I admire you and what you've done. You're a great leader. You've built a successful business. I think you've got a fantastic mission in serving the the veteran community, as well as taking care of little guys like me that just have flooded homes. So thank you, Paul. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on Money Market.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
So if you're listening to this, I mean, you've heard the business model, you've heard the mission, you're interested in potentially becoming an investor, reach out to Paul. Paul, if people want to find you, where can they reach you at?
Yeah, I'm on social media. You know me. I'm a social media hound. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Paul Huszar, Huszar. VetCor also. But I primarily am the guy that's with the microphone. Also, VetCor Services, VetCor Services.com or VetCorFranchising.com. Those are, and just about anything with VetCor in it, that I own the URL and it'll point you to us. But happy to talk to anybody anytime about their interest, particularly if they're interested in supporting our expansion. But if I can help any veteran in transition anywhere, anytime, regardless of their interest in VetCor, I'm all in.
Yeah, we heard it. You're a great guy, Paul. And so reach out to Paul. If you have any questions or a future show idea or would like to be a sponsor, you can send us a message at moneymarket@bankoftampa.com or find us on LinkedIn, X, Facebook, and on Instagram at bankoftampa.com and online at bankoftampa.com. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you around in the Money Market.